Devenney, Mary Hammel, and Rusty Earl is here from the College of Education. They're from the Catalyst Center, and they also run the iPad user group. And that happens, they meet every once a month. If you're interested in learning about how to use iPads, you're welcome to come and join in that. It's usually over the noon hour from like noon to 1, so you can bring your lunch and you can sit back. You don't have to have an iPad just to be at that group discussion. So we'll go ahead and start. I'll let them introduce themselves further and talk about the presentation and the structure. So thank you for coming.
Good morning. My name is Dennis Devenney. I'm with the College of Education. I'm the IT director. I'm here with Mary Hammel. She's the associate director of the Catalyst as well as our media specialist. And Rusty Earl, our chief videographer. We're here to talk to you about a technology that we use. So I first want to say a few things about the iPad. That better? Oh, okay. I'm used to talking to the mic, and it's okay. The iPad is a technology that we chose. It's not necessarily an end-all to be-all solution for teaching. There are many solutions and many new technologies out there that are coming to be. We use this one. We took careful consideration in studying it to use it, and that's why we're presenting on it. Mary, go ahead.
Okay.
In my view, the iPad is the old paper and pencil. Students are captivated by the media and by the quality of the media. It's teaching our students how to discern, I think, in the College of Education, of what is good material versus what would not be appropriate for students to learn a concept. So I see them becoming our textbooks.
As a classroom teacher, I think about teachers out there working with little kids. Now I can have proximity. I can go stand near that kid that needs help. I can move about the room and see what my students are doing as they're working. So for me, that's a huge factor. I also think that teaching with the iPad gives me an element of creativity that I wouldn't have otherwise. On the iPad, I can come up with an idea for a project that we want to do that supports my curriculum, give it to my kids, and they can have it done lickety-split. And so for me, we don't need 4,000 features. We just need it to work, and that seems to be what it does.
And I think the interactive portion of it is really something that is going to get people excited and get students excited, and I definitely think it will be the way of the future.
At first, it can be kind of overwhelming. Once you start really getting into it, you feel that it's very easy to use, and it just comes natural because so many of the things is just touching and moving around.
I think teaching with an iPad is different just because it's different from a laptop, and most people aren't using iPads yet. I can see myself using it because I do think it is engaging, and I think that it's not just me presenting something like a slideshow. I can like animate it and stuff using different apps on the iPad. So I think that it's going to be more engaging and fun to learn instead of just a traditional either paper pencil or traditional PowerPoints.
I think it makes the teacher mobile. You can move around the classroom and see what the kids are doing as opposed to just being kind of glued to a laptop. It lets kids be engaging, and a lot more kids, especially with the price point, can go in with an iPad and take it home or maybe have access to it at home as opposed to laptops are kind of a higher price point right now, and I feel like it can kind of be more accessible.
I would say that it would allow for flexibility and more hands-on experience than just reading off a slide. You can actually like take it and show it to somebody, and like I said, it's just very hands-on compared to like a laptop.
I think the most important part about using iPads is just go with it. The students are comfortable. They teach you. They've taught me so many little tricks, and it's a teachable moment.
Do some professional development, find people that are skilled users, and we have them all over campus, and just jump in. But the first key is put one in the hands of every one of your faculty members and show them some basics and get them using it. I think most people are surprised at how easy it really is. They don't expect that, and that's a game changer.
What we're going to cover today, basically with the iPad, is we're going to cover the iPad in education. So we're going to cover several topics. Teaching with the iPad entails more than just presenting with it like we're doing here. It takes in a lot of factors in education. What we're going to cover is basically iPads in education, how we looked at them, why we chose them, how we come up with our initiative, the digital learning content that is involved in the process of getting this material out and getting the instructors informed, and then the digital content development tools, what we chose and why we chose them, and the basics of them, and then sharing that digital content, and we'll show some of that to you, and then presentation solutions that we've come up with. We'd like to save the questions until the end, and then you can ask every question you want to ask. But first of all, we want to tell you about our initiative. Our initiative started back with studying the school districts that were coming up with new technologies, and a lot of those technologies were the iPad. We found that there was a multitude of those being used, and many of them were using a one-to-one, where they were using the classroom lab carts with the iPad. They were also starting to digitize some of their own media. Well, we understand, and you probably do too, that a lot of this information is going to be digitized, and we're trying to prepare for that digitization of textbooks, syllabuses, and all this information that you're going to get from online. So that's why we made the selection for the iPad. One of the other things we looked at when we made this choice, and we did this choice, we chose 70 full-time instructional faculty to start this initiative with. So you know the number that we started with, and we decided to do training sessions with them. Some of the things that we looked at first was the amount of sales this technology was encompassing nationwide and worldwide. Today, you can see there's well over 120 million iPads have been sold since they first came out. These are quarters of what were broken out and the years. So you can see in total for the first year, it was very high in that number. When you add those totals up, it came to 120 million. Full-time instructional faculty, as I said, are the ones that are going to be using this. And also, the sessions that we focused on assisting in doing this was kind of critical. We had to think about how we were going to initiate something that was going to be so big, but yet make sure that our instructors and our faculty had a good grasp of how they're going to use this tool, and not just hand it to them for email and those processes. So what we did was we got together and we formulated basically a mindset of how we were going to approach this animal, because we call it teaching and learning with the iPad, and what we wanted to do with them. We started with learning the setup. Oh, sorry. I didn't have that on Siri. Learning to do the setup, learning with the apps, and presenting. Now this part is where we're going to go today, and that's as far as we've gotten in our sessions and in our training. We still have these other parts, storing and using and moving the data, how it's going to be manipulated, how it's going to be translated, and how you're going to be able to handle it in the classroom and learning with it. And in our curriculum development. We've started some processes in this area, but still, it's a big area to go to. So you can see it gets bigger as you start thinking about it. This is what we're going to cover today, learning the setup, what we had to do in each one of those sessions in order to get the faculty up to speed with the technology and get them excited. Now you may look at this and say, well, that may look like pretty boring stuff. Well, we tried to make our sessions pretty exciting, and we did them in groups of 2 and 3. So that makes it a lot more sessions, but it was very critical. We still have to move into this area. How you're going to get it on K-State Online, cloud services, personal computing. And we'll touch on some of that today. Also, curriculum development. How is that going to work with math and science, finance, management, architecture, and engineering? So keep those in mind as we go through this today. Mary?
The next thing that we're going to talk about here is digital learning content. And we're kind of going to break this into several different things. And first is ebooks. And I'm a graphic designer, so I ended up doing a lot of these type of things for people creating ebooks. And what we were presenting with today, this document, is actually an iBook. And we're just using it as a presentation tool also today. So there's various different kinds of ebooks. There's books that are actually digital files that you read or look at on an ebook reader app. And then there's some books that you might have seen that are actually standalone apps. So we're going to look at these various different things here, look at some of the pros and cons. One of the first things I just wanted to address is DRM. I'm sure most of you have heard of this. It's a technology that controls access to a lot of the digital content that you might purchase, because they don't want you, stealing it or giving it to your friends and your family, that type thing. It's kind of a controversial issue, especially when it comes to fair use in education and libraries trying to lend things. But I just wanted to put it out there because it is something that needs to be thought about when you're dealing with digital content like this. First format here is EPUB, electronic publication format. And the best thing about these is you can display reflowable content that adjusts to the device. You can, in a little bit, I'll show you how your content, you can make your text bigger, smaller, and do all kinds of things with it. So the pros and cons of EPUB is the fact that you can reflow the text, you can annotate and create bookmarks, and most of our iPad initiative, we've showed our faculty members how to use iBooks. So a lot of this relates to how we've been teaching them how to use iBooks for these different types of ebook formats. With EPUBs, when you're in iBooks, you have the ability to completely annotate and create bookmarks. EPUBs are usually very small file sizes, and they're compatible with most of the basic e-readers that are out there. And one of the other better things here, pros, is it's accessible for the sight impaired because it has a speak function, or at least the iPad does. I don't know if all ebook readers do that, but it has the ability to speak your text for you. The cons is mainly dealing with creation. They're not the easiest things to create, so if you don't know any programming, have any programming knowledge like HTML or CSS, things like that, it helps to at least understand how that works, because EPUBs are basically formatted just like web pages are. So if you have a basic knowledge of the structure and syntax of web pages, you should be able to get along with it a little easier. EPUB 3 is the newest version of EPUB that's out there. It just came out this year. It's supposed to support a wider range of different types of interactivity and ways you can lay out your documents. Today, Apple is supposed to be making an announcement, probably like right now, about the possibility, I mean, like I said, all this is rumors, but having a smaller sized iPad, but it's also supposed to be announcing iBooks 3.0. So, and it's supposed to have EPUB 3 support. So I can't talk much about it yet because I don't know that much about it yet, but it's supposedly coming. So what we've been showing our faculty members with EPUB within iBooks 2, you can adjust the screen brightness, the size of the text, the theme. You can completely search throughout the document. You can place bookmarks wherever you want. You can create notes, highlights, and then, like I said, you can speak your text, or you can tap on a word and have it, the dictionary pops up and it'll define words for you. There's another version of EPUBs. They're called enhanced EPUBs, and most of those include lots of audio and video. You can have animation in it. They can be interactive. It is completely supported by the EPUB standard, but once again, if you're trying to create one, it's a little more difficult because you have to deal with audio and video compression in addition to the HTML and CSS. And the file sizes, because you're adding in all that extra stuff like video, makes the file sizes a lot larger. And then the next format that iBooks handles really well are PDFs, portable document formats. And these are best for when the format or your layout is the most important part of your document. If you need it to look just so, the way it's laid out with tables or whatever like that, then PDF is probably the best way to go. So some pros and cons. You have complete control over the layout. And PDFs are one of the most widely used documents around the world. They're easily generated because most of you probably know how to create a PDF from your computer. And they can be read on all platforms and devices pretty much. The cons, the readers cannot reflow, especially iBooks, you cannot reflow the text at all because it's a static, it's basically PDFs are just graphics of pages. So you can't reflow the text or change the font size or anything. So readers are forced to view the book exactly as it was designed. But that's a good thing, but it's a bad thing if you're looking at it on a device like this sometimes. So in iBooks 2, you can do the same things with the screen brightness, search, placing bookmarks, but you can't annotate. That's one of the main big differences, that you can't annotate the PDFs within iBooks 2. And then the third type that we are really trying to push here, because we're actually presenting with this, is the iBooks. And they're specifically created by Apple, and they only work on the iPad. Apple uses the EPUB 3 format, but they've added a few extra things to that. And with the announcement today, I don't know if they're going to be a little bit more into conforming exactly to EPUB 3 or not, so we'll see. But the main thing is you can insert all kinds of 3D objects, video, audio. There's all kinds of different widget type things that you can add to your ebook. So some pros and cons of this. They're easy to create with iBooks Author, which is a free app for the Mac. They don't make it for the PC yet that I know of. And you can add audio, video, and all kinds of other interactive elements. You can export it as a PDF for those that might not have an iPad. And once again, it's accessible for the sight impaired because it has the speak function built in. So the cons, it's exclusive to the iPad. If you create a book and intend to sell it, you can sell it, but you have to do it through Apple's iBook Store. And the other bad thing is including any video makes the file sizes very large, because the video that we showed at the beginning here, it's a 3-minute video, and I can't remember how big that was. 300 megabytes. So you've got that file size in addition to any of the other content we have on here. So you can see that these files can get pretty big pretty quick. So in iBooks 2, you've got the same type of features as the EPUB. The screen brightness can be changed, search, bookmarks, creating notes and highlights. The iBooks 2 has an extra feature, and it's called study cards. Any of the notes that you've put in to your document, you can go look at them as study cards. Each note will pop up as a study card. And so you can, if you have a textbook, if someone creates a textbook, you can go in there and note things and then flip through your study cards as you're studying for a test or whatever. So you can put all kinds of content in these iBooks. And then standalone book apps, pros and cons of those. If you're creating an actual app, you can control the navigation and the styling and everything just the way you want. You can make it feature-rich with all kinds of interactivity. And you're not limited to the iBook Store because you're selling it through the App Store. So you might have a greater market area to sell your app that way. The cons, though, is it's very costly to produce. And it's platform specific. Like if I created an app for the iPad, it won't work on an Android. So you'd have to start the process over and create it for a different platform. The file sizes can also be very large depending on what type of content you put in there, like video. And it does require a lot of custom development experience to produce one. I mean, it's not easy to create an app. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rusty.
All right, good morning. Not sure if this is working or not. Is everybody doing okay? Still awake a little bit? Okay. Well, when we talk about using this in education, I often think about when I taught classroom for about 7 years at a junior high and a high school level. And during that time, I often was thinking about how can I get my students more engaged in the classroom with creating content. So if y'all remember the glory days of PowerPoint, when PowerPoint first came out, it seemed like a lot of teachers wanted the kids to make a PowerPoint. Sometimes they had a reason for that. Sometimes it was just, wow, my kids made a PowerPoint like that. Well, video in some ways is kind of like that. The idea that, you create something because it's fun to create and the kids get engaged, And the hope is that somehow they get something out of it. And I still hope that's the truth of education. We don't just do things because it's technology and it's cool, but because we actually want to get something out of it. Well, whether you're teaching in a classroom for, teenagers, or teaching in a classroom, or as a student having your professor teach to you, there's all kinds of tools of ways we can enhance that through video presentations, or in this case, whiteboards. Now, if you guys ever been in a classroom before where they're actually drawing on a whiteboard, dry erase markers, there's some applications we're going to show you here in a minute that Dennis is going to go into. Some of those like Pen Ultimate and some others where they can literally be drawing on the iPad or on the screen of your laptop. And what's nice about that is instead of seeing all their mistakes as they're drawing, you only get to see the good things that they're trying to show you. And so sometimes that was always the confusion part. If I was teaching students about here's a PowerPoint and how you make it, they were so concerned about the peripheral tools, they weren't paying attention to what was the content we wanted to create. So all I want to say about this stuff as far as videos right now is that on an iPad, just like an iPhone or other Android devices, now we can obviously shoot video with our our cell phones or our iPad. We can take pictures, pretty good quality stuff right off the fly. But the idea is, what if you had one device like an iPad or like an iPhone where that is the content tool? You create with that, and you now have the ability to do simple things like do a basic edit with it. So obviously with each of these things there's pros and cons. An iPad, for example, I can film a movie with it. I'm not saying it's going to look great because I'll be shaking my hand like that. But you can see right there what you're doing. My brother travels a lot for his job. He was over in Jerusalem last year filming. He'd been on a business trip. And on his way back, he had that long international flight, get back home. And so during that time, he had iMovie on his iPad, and he edited a little 3-minute clip. And he called me because I do videos. He's like, hey, you got to see this great video I made on my iPad. I'm like, oh boy, let's see this work of wonder. But of course, it was actually pretty good. And he had the time to put in some transitions, put in the music. It was actually pretty darn good. And for being a content creation tool, that's what I find exciting about the iPad, is you can do things like that. Obviously, there's limitations. The quality of the audio and video sometimes is compromised. But the other thing, too, is that sometimes just taking the time to learn the application can be the downside a little bit. So we'll share some more with that in just a minute. We're going to show you a program called Pinnacle Studio. It's kind of like Apple's iMovie. It's a version of a editing software for an iPad.
Next, we want to, like Rusty said, show you actually some of these development tools to actually create some of this stuff. There's some ebook tools. These specific ones are available on the Mac. Pages for the Mac. It's available from the Mac App Store. iBooks Author is what I mentioned. That's what I used to create this, and it's free. And then I started looking to see if there was any that would actually do any EPUB type things. And there's not a lot of those out there yet. I'm not satisfied with what I've seen out there. But the ebook binder is one that I've tested a little bit. But like I said, you kind of have to understand the syntax with web pages and stuff to kind of know what you're doing. But it does let you add text files and some images and HTML files and things like that as chapters in your ebook, and then it exports it out as an EPUB. If you have a PC or a Mac, you can go the route with Microsoft Word and a free program called Calibre. But this is not for the faint-hearted. You have to export it out from Word as an HTML file, and then you bring your HTML file into Calibre, and you have to do tweaking. So the problem is Microsoft Word does not, the HTML that it produces is not always real clean. So it seems like, you can try it, but I haven't had really good results without having to tweak some things. And then, of course, there's Adobe InDesign. If you have 5.5 or 6 or anything above that, it lets you create things and export them directly to EPUB format. And then, of course, there's online tools like .epub.com. There's one called 2EPUB, and there's a whole bunch of other ones that let you go to the website and you upload your files, and it exports it out as an EPUB for you. Some of them work okay. Some of them I haven't been very happy with, but I've only experimented with a couple of them. The .epub lets you convert web pages into ebooks. And then there's actually a handful of apps available right on your iPad to help create things. One of them is called Creative Book Builder, and there's one called My Memoir for iPad. And I'm going to just show you really quickly. It looks really simple. This one's Creative Book Builder. It looks really simple, but basically what you do, you start your book and you can add chapters. So if I want to add another chapter or another section, I go in there, and then it asks me to put in a title. So I'm just going to put title. But it gives you controls of your fonts. Let's see what. It gives you a handful of fonts to use. The size, 16, I'll just bump it up a little bit here. And then you click Save, and you save again. And then I've created another chapter here. Of course, I didn't call it anything real exciting there. And then over here on this side, you can add elements. You can add a paragraph of text. So you can cut and paste something from another app, or you can just start typing right here. I'm going to hit cancel. If you know Markdown language or HTML, you can actually go do that. You can add media, images, video, audio recordings. Or you can add files if you use Dropbox or Google Docs or one of those other things, services, cloud services. You can go in and access, because I'm already logged in here to Dropbox, and I can go in and just select a file, and then tell it to import the file. And so now that file is part of my chapter. And miscellaneous, it lets you add a QR code, a YouTube video, a Quizlet. It has all kinds of different options that it lets you add in there. And then you can preview it, and it'll show you. And basically, see, I put this text file in, but it's a link to the text file. So if I wanted to actually have all of that text on there, I would go into paragraph and actually like cut and paste it. And you see at the bottom here, it asked me what I had EPUB selected, so it shows you the difference. And this isn't a real good example, but you can see the different things. And then when I go to publish, I'm not going to go through that because it takes a little bit, but I will show you very briefly what this book looks like. That's not the right book, sorry. So this is what my ebook looks like. So you saw where I had all these chapters. So I can go to these different chapters, and I typed in a paragraph. And then this filling the larder final is a PDF document. So like I said, you can have it links to the PDF document. So when you open your EPUB, it's in here and it's opening. And so there it is. So I didn't put a video in there, so I could have showed you that. But anyway, then I can just flip through. This was actually some text that I put in. So you can go in and you can make notes and highlights and everything else just like you do with any other EPUB. Okay. And the other one I was going to show you is called My Memoir. And basically, whoops, this is it's made to be a journaling app. So it has a calendar you see at the top. But it works really well to create EPUBs because you can type in your text or cut and paste your text from another app. And then over on this side, it lets you add images. And for some reason, it's not playing nice here. I can also, it's kind of tiny over there, but there's a little thing right above where it says entries that lets you add video. So I have a little video there. So it lets you bring text in. Like I said, I can type in text. I can add each day, or as the journal is a separate chapter. And then let me show you real quickly back in iBooks. After I exported it out, whoops, I went back to this is what I got. So I could put in a title image, and that's what that photograph is there. But then each of the days of the journal are here of different chapters. And what it does with the images and the movies, it puts them at the end of the chapter. I don't know how you could put them within the different things. It puts all the images and all the video at the end. But see, my video is embedded right there into my EPUB. Okay. Let's get back into our presentation. Oops. That's not what I wanted. So that was Creative Book Builder. Shows you some screenshots of how you can create your content. My Memoir is the other one. And so you can create all your content there and share it. And I'm going to turn it back over to Rusty to talk about some of these video, whiteboard, and presentation tools.
Okay, so as we promised, we're going to talk about some of these a little bit more in depth. Pinnacle Studio, the only reason why I downloaded this one was at the time it was free. I didn't want to spend any money on it, but there's lots of other editing applications out there. Have any folks had a chance to edit a video before? Even just real simple basic editing? You know how it takes work. You know, you're always looking at your shot to see, can I even use the shot? How can I work it back and forth? Well, if you're thinking about creating content, what I call on the fly, where you got your iPad there, let's just say it was your iPhone or something, you film what you get, and then normally you think about bringing it back with you to put on your home computer and edit it there. Well, these applications like Pinnacle Studio and iMovie, these allow you to edit it there on the iPad itself, and it's all touch-based, so no mouse, no keyboard, it's all based off of that. These other programs deal with the whiteboard and the other presentation tools, which Dennis will talk about in just a minute. Mary, if you'll go and swap to the next one, please. So Pinnacle Studio, when you first open it up, this is the opening slide, and I won't take the time to actually display this for you yet, but at the time, if you'd like to see a little demo of that, I can do that for you. Essentially, what it allows you to do is you bring in your video clips, and if this is what the main iPad screen looks like, these would be individual video clips that I've captured with the iPad. The preview over here, this allows me to see while I'm playing it back and forth what it looks like. And what's kind of nice about this, when I think of it like in editing terms, if I'm paid to make a video for someone, I want to make sure that my edit points are where I want them. I want to be able to adjust the volume and at least do some basic, transitions from a rough shot to the next one. And even a simple $8 program like this can do all of those things. Like other programs, if you've used other editing programs, this is your timeline down below, so that when you look at a clip and you kind of do a little precision edit, you can bring it down to the timeline and then be able to play it forward in time. Good, Mary? So now we have some random clips, and again, this is very random stuff here. But here we have individual clips that show up as a small thumbnail clip. And so imagine this, when iMovie, the app first came out for the first iPad, they also made it, I believe, for the iPhone. So imagine taking that little tiny screen and you're trying to edit and cut a movie, little 1/4 inch at a time with your finger right there. iPad's a little bit easier than that. And as you go along here, you'll see there's more and more tools that come up with it. Go ahead, Mary. But for me as a video editor that, I now make my living making movies, if you will, or cutting videos, you got to have some tools to it. And as basic as this program is, I can make a title, I can do transitions, I can adjust the volume. It works pretty dang good. So here's some tools over here that allow you to put in the audio, if you can see that symbol, transitions, text, effects. You can even do some basic color corrections to change the color of the video. Last couple of things that's kind of unique about the iPad that people have been talking about when it first came out is, okay, great, I got the iPad and I can watch my movie on there, but how can I possibly share this? Well, now that we've had some time for the iOS to build up a little bit, now that you can actually take video and pictures, at the back end of that, certainly you could email a video to somebody, or you can automatically upload it just like your iPhone can and other things to Facebook, to YouTube. I can also save it just as a video file itself. But now we're talking about, think of it from a student perspective. My teacher asked me to create this content, and then he wants it back. Well, now I can create it on the iPad, do a small edit, and then email it back to them or send it to them a site where they can watch it in full HD and see it at the same time. So to me, this is kind of the exciting thing about where video is going, is that we're able to create something, even though it is limited, you can create it right there on the one device and share it on one device. Okay, I'll turn it back over to Dennis for this next part.
Well, you've seen some of the programs we're showing to our faculty and what we're showing them how they can start putting it together to teach with. Well, there's an application that I'm going to bring up here, and I don't know how I'm going to hold on to the mic to do this, that will allow you to basically start creating and putting things out there for you to use in the classroom. One of them is, it's Docery. It's free. It's free for the iPad. It's not free for the computer because Docery can be used either on the iPad or you can transition through a computer, PC or Mac, and actually use that tool to project other things that are on the PC or the Mac. What I wanted to show you was it can be a whiteboard, and you can create with it, and you can create things ahead of time with it. And as you can see, I've got tools, maybe you can't, I've got tools on mine that you can't see on the screen. So I can be interacting with you, talking with you, and start doing things with the iPad. I can also go back, and while you're still viewing this, I can go to another lesson and bring it up and talk about volume and variety, capacity and flexibility in production operations, if that's the area that I'm in. I can also leave that on the screen, and I can go to another type of document, bring it up, and I can talk to you about this. I can also video record this, so I could be in my office, and I could have all this planned out, and I could do a recording in front of you and show you simultaneously the various slides that I have for you to view. And then I can also go to a whiteboard again and rehearse and go through some of that if it's some sort of mathematical problem, or even if I want to change the pin. And you don't see any of these tools. So I can do those kind of things and interact with it. Now I'm going to step out of Docery and show you Penultima. Penultima is one that we bought for our faculty to use, but another thing we try to remind all our faculty of, be sure you check your application before you go and show it. Because if you're going to just show the application, I can't show you Penultima. I can only show you what I've created with Penultima. Make sense? So in this, I have a notebook that I've opened up. I've got a volume of it here. We got Penultima as a pen resource, a notebook-taking resource. But we found it makes a great whiteboard, and it's cheap. It's 99 cents. Of course, Docery's free for the client on the iPad. But I can go in here, and I can start showing you in different formats my presentation. You don't see my pens, but I can bring in graphics and pictures. And I can show them on the screen. I can size them or move them around. And I can do this in front of the class or in my office. I can also take that graphic and I can mark on it and draw on it. I can also change slides as I go. So I may have something already prepared that I want to talk about. And I can mark on it, highlight it. I can put other pictures and photographs in here. So whatever your imagination you can go to. I can't type in text, so I would have to get a document, shoot a picture of it, pull it up here, and then I could mark through it. Those are these applications. The other thing that's neat about this is I can jump around. So I have slides on here that I can go and move to. And you don't see them, but I have a whole series of them. And I can have a series of notebooks. And let's say I'm in this slide, and this is a very important slide, and I need to send that to a student. I can email it from here directly to you as a PDF. If I'm collaborating with you on this document through an iPad and you have Penultima, I can actually send you my Penultima file. You can edit it, change it, and send it back to me. So you can collaborate with this also. Neat tool. And that being said, it'll turn here in a moment. Or I think it will.
Everyone get up and turn your head.
Yeah, turn your head a little bit. It doesn't want to turn. Well, Mary, would you bring it back? So I'm going to change this back, and Mary's going to take it over. Okay, so in here, we basically have a variation of all the flexibility tools of each one of these types of applications. There are many out there, hundreds of them. We've chosen these because of price and because of their flexibility and because we need to start faculty off with a base of what they need to learn in order to start utilizing these tools and finding tools. Go to the next one. Yeah, just go on through because I've done the penultimate. And as you can see, I can take it to a PDF or I can send it out as a penultimate file. Rusty.
Okay, so now we're kind of back to PowerPoint again. Have any of you used Keynote on an Apple computer or heard of it before? Keynote? It's basically PowerPoint for a Mac, if you will. I've been using this since this first came out in, I don't know what that was, 2006, something like that. But basically the same thing. You got slides you want to show, you want to embed stuff like videos, you want to play music, you want to have presentations done in a nice, slick way. And Keynote's certainly one of those nice programs that can do that. When it came out for the iPad here, again, this was an app you had to pay for, but brilliantly done. And the reason why I like this is that it plays very, very nicely with old PowerPoints. And so if you're kind of going back and forth from like, well, I do stuff on a PC, my brother does stuff on a Mac, how can we share stuff? This will convert your files for you, even from very, very old PowerPoints. If you want to go and slide through. So just like a PowerPoint, you got templates you can go through, and you can actually add more than these. But you pick a template, you can insert all kinds of things from text to charts, images, movie clips, lots of things, and it will embed them in a nice, easy, pre-made template format for you. And then, of course, at the very end here, when you're done with it, let's say I'm going to send my email to my brother down in Houston, and he's totally a PC guy. We have very funny Apple PC conversations all the time. But I need to send him a slideshow I have prepared, and so when I click on my share icon within Keynote, I can either send it as individual PDF slides or as a PowerPoint. And it actually kind of goes back in time. If he doesn't have the newest, latest, greatest PowerPoint, it's pretty shareable back and forth. Obviously, there's little things that don't always show up 100% like text, but for me, this is a great little program where you can create a lot of content and share it very easily in a Mac and a PC environment. I'm going to go and open this up now and go and show you a real quick example of what this looks like. Okay, so here's Keynote. And just like a PowerPoint, we got our slides on the left here. You got some tools across the top, which actually look pretty limited. There doesn't look like there's very many tools. And then we can preview this. Okay? Now, can anybody see something wrong with my example here? Do we have a life cycle of caterpillars? Probably not. I think it's supposed to be like a butterfly or something. Okay? Anyway, as an example of this, as my slides go down right here, just like in a PowerPoint, you can create things, but instead of typing and clicking, you're just using your fingers to do that. So if I go over here to one of my slides, number 6, for example, has nothing on it. And just like other content, I can literally double tap to change what that says right there. Another cool feature that's been out there for a little while now is the ability to use your speaker or your microphone for this. So I could actually click on this and say what I want it to say. Let's see if I get lucky here. Caterpillar. Wow, lucky. All right. So all kinds of tools. Wow. All right. Okay. It is impressive. Okay. But we can add content really easily. If you look at the tools across the top there, again, it looks limited, but the more you get into it, there's actually quite a bit. When I click on this plus sign here for my tools, I can go into my camera roll, which houses all of my pictures, including my kids who've hijacked the iPad and taken pictures. And I can either grab videos or photos. They're stored in one spot, and I say, hey, that's a pretty caterpillar. Click on it. It's in there. I can resize it. I can change the orientation. You can do all kinds of things with it right there. And then, of course, if you want to add transitions, just like in PowerPoint, you can click on it, transitions, and it will actually preview what that looks like for you. So a very slick program. And again, we're talking about this being a content creation tool. So imagine yourself, again, as a teacher or something else, you're traveling, and this is all you've got with you. You don't have your nicer video camera, you don't have your nicer camera, but at least you can take something decent and then quickly pull it into the program and have access to it. So I think it's pretty amazing. Okay, again, if I want to share this with somebody, that top right button up there, if I click on it. Oh, excuse me, that's my play button. Go to that. Wrench, okay. See where it says share and print? I'll click on email this presentation, and now my brother in Houston, I can click on PowerPoint. It's going to reset that into a PowerPoint format. All I have to do is type in his address, and it goes to him. Okay? So very, very nice, very slick way of having a sharing device that goes with it. Okay? All right, I think I'm done.
Okay. As part of our iPad initiative, we were trying to find some apps that our faculty would use to, like I said, create their own content, but we wanted something that would help them do some of the other background stuff. We found this app called Goodreader that is like a Swiss Army knife. It does all kinds of things. It lets you can create file folders and things like that to put a lot of your files and content, and you can put PDF files, text files, images, movies, Microsoft Office files, HTML files, iWork files, audio, everything. So this app does a lot of stuff. It'll open up all kinds of files that you might not be able to open in any of your other apps. One of the best features of file accessibility is the fact that it'll open zip files. Because if someone sends you a zip file and you open it up in here, I don't really know of any other apps that you can go in and actually unzip something, but this one does that, and it'll unzip it and put the files there for it so you can see everything. It also is wonderful to annotate PDFs. And I told you that iBooks too, you can view your PDFs in there, but you can't annotate them. So Goodreader is really good at annotating PDFs. You can also access servers through the app. If you use Dropbox or iCloud or anything like that, it lets you have complete access to any of those servers, or Google Docs, whatever. And you can sync files back and forth. You can put things up there from Goodreader, and you can bring things back onto your iPad from Dropbox or whatever. You can also go to a website and grab a file, if there's a PDF file or something like that, and transfer it. And one of the things I use Goodreader for a lot, it has an ability to connect directly wirelessly with your desktop computer or your laptop. So if you have a whole bunch of files, well, who wants to email all those files to yourself? You just create a wireless connection between the iPad and your desktop or a laptop, and it shows you, when you connect, it shows you the file structure you have on here, and you can put it in whatever folder you want on here within Goodreader. And you can move a whole bunch of files at once that way. I use that feature of this all the time, that and unzipping files. Another feature that we liked about Goodreader is that I can open a PDF, and I told you you can annotate it and do whatever. It also has the feature that if you open a PDF page up, you can extract all of the text from that specific page. You have to do it page by page. It doesn't extract all the text from the whole PDF document, but page by page, and it extracts it, and it copies the text to the clipboard, so then you can go back into another app like My Memoir or one of those other ones and paste the text in there. So if you have a whole bunch of text that you want to move and all you have it is in a PDF, you can extract it and pop it into Keynote or whichever other app that you'd like. That's yours. Dennis is going to talk a little about the use of cloud servers.
Cloud services. To lead off of what she was talking about with Goodreader, is it allows you to access these services. So it's kind of like a centralized source where it gets you to Dropbox where you can get your files. It also allows you to get your iCloud account so you can pull the files off of there, or your Google Docs account. So it gives you that accessibility. It's kind of like a central station for your data from moving it around to other applications on your iPad or back to your PC or Mac. The one thing I was just going to say, you can leave it right there, is iCloud you get free with the iPad. So that's 5 gigabyte of space that you use. An extra 20 gig, I think, is $40. Not very much money, especially when you equate that out over 12 months. It's like $2 a month. So that's a lot of good storage data. It's encrypted there, so it's safe. We do ask that if you have information that's, let's say, highly confidential or financial records, that when you select a source of where you're going to store your information, you make sure that it's going to be safe and secure. There are some issues on some. There's been issues about Dropbox, whether it's really encrypted and secure, where we know iCloud is encrypted and secure. Google Docs the same way. So keep that in mind when you're handling that data. A lot of us use Dropbox because we have data that it doesn't matter. If somebody wants it, by all means they can have it, but we just use that as a source. Go ahead to the next slide.
Just one note I wanted to make
Sure.
about GoodReader. I told you it was a Swiss Army knife. You can also password protect your files. You can unlock them. It has
Yes.
that ability.
So if you were using
you-
actually using Dropbox, you could secure that file and then drop it in Dropbox and it's secure. And just don't forget that passcode. You won't get it back. Presentation solutions. Maybe some of you just came for this part. In the College of Ed, we're a testing ground for a new type of network system. So what we're doing here is kind of a simulation of what we're installing in our building. So we're set apart in that aspect, but it's an experiment. It's a testing to see if it's financially feasible and how it works and all the bugs and even the bells and whistles of it, are they pertinent to the actual cost of it. We actually use the iPad, an Apple TV that's sitting back behind Mary, which is linked into, actually we're using another type of router right now because it's a different network. And then it is hooked into the projection system or a flat panel TV. We're revamping 15 rooms in our building specifically for these services. So I could move around and do a presentation. I could actually go sit with a student or sit with a group of students, or I could actually let them share the screen from their iPad and do those kind of things. That's some of the technologies we've not seen in some of the other devices. That is another reason why we chose the iPad. Another type of system, or just to show you this is how we connect. We go to the control center. If we have AirPlay, is what we call it, turned on, you'd click on this button. It actually pops up a window, and it allows you to select the room or device you're connecting to, type in a password, and then, no more? Okay, and then it actually mirrors the iPad like we're doing now, so you're actually on. Apple TV has also come up with a new update which now allows us to have strict access to that device, so it gives us a code that we can type in and use the instructor then control it, so that you can't jump back and forth like we're doing here. You actually have total control. So if you would have a classroom full of iPads and they knew the code, like in this instance, they could be interfering with your presentation. Well, they added a second level to that, so now you can just control it. And then if you want to give that to a student, you can let them log in and it gives them a code and then they can get on. A little slower process, but a little more secure. Another device we handed out to all our faculty, VGA iPad adapter. Why? Because 99% of the projection systems and TV panels have a VGA out. Keep in mind, audio does not travel through VGA, so you have to have an audio cable also. HDMI works real well, but it's not on all the projection systems, and we want to make sure that when our faculty go into a room, they can connect. It's wired because it's tethered to the table or it's tethered to the wall, and they can't walk with it, but they do have the ability to at least connect and display what they have on their iPad. Cons, mobility is limited by the cable. Not all the applications will project correctly. As I showed you with Penultima, you couldn't see everything I was trying to show you, but you saw specifically what I really wanted you to see. And it does not carry audio. And there are other, what you call a HDMI video adapter that you could use to do that. Keep in mind also, if you're showing movies on an iPad and it's strictly a movie that you downloaded, if it is protected, it may not play through a VGA cable, because a VGA cable it may consider is an unauthorized source or a not compliant to being played through VGA. So you have to have an HDMI cable to do that. Okay? Another way is through reflection. That's an application that you can put on your PC or your Mac, and it allows you to reflect or mirror like we're doing here, but you have to have the PC tied into your system to do that. And then you can go through the same process we're doing here, but it takes two pieces of equipment to do that. The next one is actually presenting where you have the iPad using Keynote set on the table, and you can walk around with your iPhone and you can do a connection or a display with the Keynote. And Mary, did you want to demo that?
Yeah, the main thing with using the Keynote remote is you have to authenticate. And basically what happens is when the Keynote remote is an iPad app, or excuse me, an iPhone app. And when you're getting ready to present, you come in to your settings in the Keynote remote, and it gives you a code. And then you put the code into the iPad, and it makes this link between the iPad and the iPhone, and then you can present. And it gives you options of landscape mode, which lets you see the current slide you're on and the next slide, or you can choose portrait mode, which shows you the current slide and then any presentation notes you have. So I'm going to do a quick little demo. If I can find my... I think I am, yeah. So it's telling me it's connected, and I know you can't see this, but it says it's connected to Keynote on my iPad, and then there's a button here and it says play slideshow. So I'm going to play the slideshow. And when Rusty was talking about Keynote, when you're actually in presentation mode, you're seeing, your slide up here, but when on the actual iPad, when you're presenting, it actually has a clock there that's showing you, so you can see how much time you're spending on each slide. So now I can walk around. Of course, I can walk around with the iPad right now too, because of the way we have it set up. But I can walk around here with my Keynote remote. And I used this a couple weeks ago during a presentation for an undergraduate class, and they were more fascinated with what I was doing with my iPhone than paying attention to this up here. But it's really kind of handy because you can just walk around. It's just a nice little remote app. I really like it. And I think
that pretty well wraps it up. We got one other thing to kind of bring into mind, because all of you are pretty new to this technology, even though I know you're pretty well techno-savvy, but the iPad is only 3 years old as of coming up this next April, okay? The thing that we're finding in our studies with students and faculty is the awe factor that you have to keep in mind when you're creating lessons, teaching, and displaying the media. This awe is students get caught in the fact of what they're seeing as entertainment, not as a lesson and not as information. So you have to engage them. So when you design your lesson for that day, for that semester, you have to engage them in a 2, 3, 5-minute interval so they can come back to the reality of what's going on with what you're trying to teach them. Now, you probably haven't experienced this yet, but it's a generation gap of 3 years is what we figure. Because K-12 schools, that awe is already coming to be. So when they leave and graduate, this is going to be kind of old hat. This is something we expect. So 3, 4 years from now, you'll see students coming on campus with iPads, knowing how to display it, seeing it done in K-12. So that factor won't be there. But currently, you have to keep that in mind, and engage is what we say, don't entertain. So keep that in mind. And now we're open up for you to ask us questions. Annie? Yes.
You mentioned that you were working on getting airplay in other classrooms in the
Hall.
What's your timeline for that and which classrooms?
I've got 15 rooms I'm working on. I have to have Ethernet, 5 to 6 cables pulled to each room for just the Ethernet. I have to have electrical reinstalled and various podium setups for that. So getting all those coordinated. I'm hoping to have half those rooms done by January, but it's all in synchronizing of getting technical people to come in and get all that put together. And then I have a service out of Topeka coming in and putting up the equipment. My goal is to have it all done by the end of May, all 15 weeks.
Dennis, do you mind using the microphone?
Oh,
Just like everything.
okay. Hand it out.
When you were using the Keynote remote, does that, if you had your iPad plugged into the VGA, which I do with my adapter, can you use that remote when it's plugged into the VGA to a projector?
Yes.
Also?
Because when I used it several weeks ago, they didn't have an AirPlay system, so I was plugged into a VGA.
Okay.
But you do have to, of course, it works on Bluetooth and a Wi-Fi. So if you don't have, yeah,
And it's specifically to Keynote.
correct. It's called Keynote Remote. Mm-hmm.
For Keynote. Okay.
Yeah.
Questions?
You talked about the Doceri app. Can you use that without a computer if you don't have AirPlay projection capabilities?
Siri?
Doceri.
Can I use it without?
Like, I downloaded the app on my iPad because that part is free. But if I wanted to use it with my computer, like I had to pay $30 or whatever to be able to do that. Is there a way to do that without using AirPlay? Like, I thought you said that you could link the two if you use AirPlay.
I could have hooked my iPad up to a VGA and done the same thing, and you'd seen what I did with Doceri. Is that what you're asking?
Well, with that app, you can control your actual computer.
Right.
Also.
Yes, you can.
Can you? Is there a way that you can do that without spending the money to get the paid app?
The paid app? No, not to run through the computer.
Okay.
Down to the right there. Gentleman over here. Across the right.
No question? Okay. Any other questions?
Thanks, Dennis. So, okay, so faculty have had these iPads for 2 months, 3 months.
3 months.
3 months. So what are you finding? What are their comments besides maybe you're engaging versus entertaining? What are other things they're saying about the iPads?
Well, what we're finding is session 1 was kind of like pulling teeth to get them to come in, but they had to come in to get the iPad, so they had to be there to get it. And for each one of our sessions, it was mandatory that they came and went through all 3 sessions in order to have or keep the iPad. What we found is after session 1, they were immediately wanting session 2 and session 3. They became hungry, and now they're even ready for session 4, which goes into the other parts I was showing you up there with curriculum development and presenting and data manipulation. So it's been a great, great for them. They've enjoyed it. They've actually wanting more.
Do you think the value of the books, the paper books, and we will put it in the iPad, is going to be down in price? It's going to be good for the students, or just it's going to be keeping the same price?
Yeah, so good question. Do we think that textbooks, for example, will be going away here pretty soon, or that at least the price will start to drop as we see more people doing that? I think we're still, as far as textbook, we're still probably about 2 years away from seeing a huge change. Right now we're seeing little rumbles in the road. People are starting to open their eyes to this could really work. iBooks Author that Mary talked about, if there's 4 different ways right now or different programs you could use to publish a book in an electronic format, iBooks is the easiest, but you have to have a Mac to create it right now. So that's one little bridge that I think we're going to see gapped here pretty soon. My brother right now teaches entrepreneurship in his college, and so he's getting ready to produce one of his first books in the iBook format. But if you go right now, if you were to go to the Apple iBook store, there's less than 100 books out there right now that are ready. But you go to the PC world of ebooks and e-publishing, there's a lot more books out there ready to go. So,
Rusty?
Yeah.
You might point out that this is the iBook store.
Yeah.
If you go down towards the bottom of the main screen, they actually have a section that's iBooks textbooks.
Yeah.
And this is where you can look and see what is available out there right now.
Mm-hmm. And again, it's fairly limited right now. A lot of these, they kind of geared off by saying, let's push this for our middle school kids or for our elementary kids. And I actually read a blog by the very first one that came out. That was like Life Science or something. The end goal was to get it so that they could get it on to the iBook store and get it ready to sell, because you want to make money at doing something, I guess. And it was kind of complicated right there. So I have a feeling after today's announcement, we're going to see that that's going to be a little more streamlined. And once it's easier for people to publish those books, we're going to see a lot more out there. But you look at the big four or five big publishers right now, Simon & Schuster and different names, they're gearing up this way right now. They're interested in following the money. So I think with the next 2 years, we're going to see a big change that way.
Well, look at the price here. This is $1.99. So that's already a lot better than going and buying.
The session before this one, which was 4 weeks ago, David Fallon was in. Very interesting, because not all books, textbooks, are going to be something that you just put on a shelf on the iPad. I think they're going to be accessible through the internet, through Safari, and you will have that access and be able to read and view those books. Prices will change. It's a mindset of getting the person or the writer to change his mind on how he's going to obtain his money from that book, or and the volume he will sell that can't be reshuffled and redistributed. It's a one-time sale, which is money.
One nice thing about the iBook store is that they do have the ability, you can download a sample. You see right next to the price there. And samples are free. A lot of times they'll give you like a chapter or something like that. So you can look and see what these are all about.
Well, I hope we've given you kind of a taste of where we're going. Ask us again in 6 months and we'll tell you more.